Happy Saturday. Good morning. It's another day of $5 in the world. Um, I'm back at the weekly schedule. I gave a session 2 weeks ago, Saturday, missed last Saturday from obligations and some things got in the way. Shouldn't have let that happen, but it did. So I'm back today. And I'm really excited about this chapter because it's a period of time of adversity for Dad and a real test of his character and his stories and his sayings. Did they hold up under duress? It's one thing, to be at your best and have a good attitude and be generous and friendly and fun loving and all those cool things and ambitious when things are rolling pretty good for you. Um, or at least it might be easier. But when things are difficult, when dreams get extinguished and plans don't come to fruition, and big changes have to take place, downsizing or ending relationships and or any kind of big move. That's a real test to our higher qualities, or it reveals them, or it shows that they're real. And this period of time, I found out, I knew it anyways, but maybe more than any other time of Dad's life, this period confirmed for me that what he believed what he said, and he lived accordingly, and it was unconditional to circumstances. And it's helped me in my own life when I've been through similar periods of difficulty, um, letdowns, even failure, or the end of one moment and the start of another, downsizing, doing without, having to change, um, move the family around, and not always because we wanted to, but because we needed to, stuff like that. That's hard times. Those are difficult things. And I saw Dad rise to the occasion, work out solutions, and using the philosophy, the worldview, the mindset that I've been sharing with you over these several chapters, saw it in real time under adversity. And it was so impressive. And it was such a valuable lesson to me and my brother and anyone else who knew him at that time, that it really mattered. It really worked. So this chapter is called Be the Kind of Associate You Always Wanted. And it goes like this. And always, uh, please put your thoughts and ideas in the chat, and look forward to hearing from you. At the end of the 1970s, Gray Mobile Homes was in a difficult situation. There had been a deep recession in the early 70s. In the course of that, Dad had agreed to take on some distressed dealerships in another state in an effort to help out a crucial lender. But in so doing, he was taking on a lot more risk and debt. The other stakeholders had made some assurances that if things did not work out well, they would make arrangements to soften the blow. What came along in the later 70s was a term known as stagflation, a combination of high interest rates, rising unemployment, and stubborn inflation. By 1981, it was clear that Gray Mobile Homes could not continue as it was. This was a difficult time for Dad. As the president of this enterprise, many families and companies relied on Gray Mobile Homes for their livelihood. The numbers were unforgiving and the situation wasn't salvageable. So, Dad negotiated a deal in which each sales lot manager would be given the option of taking on the ownership of the lot they ran. This would mean that inventory would not have to be liquidated, people would not be unemployed, and the other entities involved would be able to mitigate their losses. It left Dad without a company. It was a difficult time for him. He had imagined, built, and ran this company for 30 years. Chuck and I even did a TV spot with Dad that celebrated the 30-year anniversary of Gray Mobile Homes the year prior. I learned so much about handling adversity from witnessing our dad navigate these days. Our home life seemed unchanged. His attitude remained upbeat and engaged. He did not start smoking and drinking again. He did not rant about the unfairness of it all. He did not brood over the earlier decisions that could have been different. If he had not told us about the events as they unfolded, we would not have been able to tell that all of this was going to end based on just his behavior. He really believed and excuse me, he really believed and lived by the things he said he did. We all know that it is a lot easier to be kind and patient and generous when things are going well. It is crisis moments that both build and reveal character. Dad really was who he said he was. And it would be negligent to not mention that our mom was steadfast and resilient as anybody I've ever met in similar circumstances. Dad characterized the passing away of Gray Mobile Homes as the end of an exciting chapter. He wouldn't have changed a thing, he said, and he was looking for the next opportunity. He began looking into these former stakeholders that had pledged to support him in the event of this very collapse occurring. Some of those entities were no longer around anymore either. Some of them had short memories. One of them offered an option. Fairmont Homes is a manufacturer of mobile homes in northern Indiana, Napanee to be exact. They were one of the most productive mobile home producers in the Midwest. Gray Mobile Homes had been one of the biggest outlets. Dad and the owner of Fairmont, Jim Shea Sr., had a strong relationship. They were both larger-than-life characters. Dad gained influence by his charisma and his spirit of goodwill. Jim leaned into his intellect and power. They were two sides of the same leadership coin. They were complementary in their strengths and weaknesses. I do believe Jim envied Dad for his numerous friends and admirers. People looked up to him regardless of what his status or title was. Jim always had the nagging suspicion that people around him had ulterior motives, and he was usually pretty guarded. Jim was the one who offered Dad a place in the executive ranks at Fairmont. Dad, and then the rest of us, would need to move to northern Indiana. Goodbye lake house with a pool, goodbye houseboat, goodbye plane, and goodbye community. Hello townhouse condo and all new social codes. Now for me, it was the least disruptive because I was heading off to MSU after high school. For Mom and Chuck, his junior high years, this was a real shake-up of lifestyle, social standing, and community. The condo Dad rented was on the lake, and he did buy a speedboat for skiing to bring what fun he could to the situation. Mom performed her magic and gave that townhouse life. Chuck rallied well and became a force to be reckoned with in his school years. Dad assumed a position at Fairmont Homes that Jim called the Director of Special Projects. Dad spent a lot of time with Jim, and an unofficial role that revealed itself early on was he would be the good cop to Jim's bad cop. Employees who felt like they'd been poorly treated had a person to listen who would also save their careers with perspective. Dealers who felt ignored could talk to a colleague who knew what it was like to be a dealer. He threaded the needle of remaining loyal to Jim and a trusted confidant of dozens, if not hundreds of people that dealt with Fairmont Homes. He weathered Jim's stormy blast from time to time himself with grace. He played a critical role in Jim reconciling with several close family members. He played a critical role in Jim's reconciling with several close family members with whom he had previous fallings out with. Scripture says that the peacemakers are blessed. Dad was blessed. Because people liked Dad so much, they would seek him out at company events. He would graciously direct their attention onto Jim. He handled a lot of the corporate trips and marketing programs. Vendors would want to thank him and give him perks. He would make sure that Jim received the credit for the generosity and the fun of the event. Even in the unofficial counseling sessions he would have with people, he prefaced them by telling the other person to not say something to him that they wouldn't say to Jim. And they would talk to him anyways because they knew he could help. He walked this tightrope for 13 years. He started his career at Fairmont Homes at the age of 65 years old. He embraced the role and brought his special energy and genius to it. Between his charisma and Mom's gifts for hospitality and graciousness, they transformed the energy within that company. As men went to Dad for career advice, the women came to Mom for relationship advice. I can only guess at how many marriages and careers they salvaged by being there in that time and place. The little townhouse was replaced by a large custom-built modular home on a channel of the lake with a little nicer boat. The deck he had built became the place to be in the summer. As I said, everybody had settled into their life in Indiana, and all held together by God's grace and Dad's leadership and Mom's determination to live fully in whatever circumstances they faced. I asked Dad, how did he manage shifting gears from being the center of attention for Fairmont Homes and so many others as one of the biggest dealers in the Midwest to being an executive at Fairmont Homes, answering to a very mercurial person? A lot of people would have given up at 65 after going through the dissolution of his company, shedding the trappings of success, not the tailored suits though, and having to work for people that in a sense had worked on his behalf. He answered this a couple of ways. He said that he had a good run and that nothing lasts forever. He gave it all he had and enjoyed an amazing time doing it. He had no regrets for the past. And as far as working for Jim, he said that when you run a business, it can be difficult to find a person at your right hand that really gets it. He said every day he would go to the office with the intent of being the kind of associate for Jim that he'd always wanted for himself. Like he said, be the kind of associate you wish you always wanted. Dad really was the guy he said he was. That was the chapter that I really enjoyed writing, because when I think back on that, it really taught me a lot about adversity. It taught me a lot about the depth of character. It taught me a lot about, sincerity and the magic of knowing what you believe and why you believe it, and trusting it, testing it, and making changes if you have to, being adaptable, but at your core, be true to who you are. And if you're gracious, be gracious. If you're kind, be kind. If a good leader, be a good leader, whatever your title. Live your life to the fullest. I learned from Dad that character is unconditional. That you want your character to shine through when things are going well, and you really lean into your character when things are going badly. And that sustains us, and it inspires others to be their best. I have a life coach I listen to and take, calls with. And one of the things she says is live a role model worthy life. In other words, live a life that if somebody was watching, they could learn something. If somebody was listening, they could make a life change that would benefit them. Live a life that's worth living up to, and have that as sort of a guide, as sort of a check on, say, our weaker moments, and good things will happen. I don't know if Dad in the quiet moments or the dark moments thought any differently than the thoughts he expressed. I actually don't think he did. I'll give you one example. I didn't put it in this chapter, and I'm reconsidering it. At the end of his run at Fairmont Homes, Jim Shea gifted him a significant amount of money. It's kind of a retirement package, a thank you, a bonus, all kinds of things attached to some kind of performances of the company, almost like a stock share, but not quite. It's a pretty good chunk of money. And Dad, it was important because they were going to start over again, because this was about the time that Dad decided he'd like to get back into retail one more time. And the vehicle for that was going to be me and my brother. My brother and I had spent some time in this industry, working for other people, learning the ropes, and decided that somehow, some way, we were going to have a dealership and we were going to be partners. Dad wanted to be in on that, and just to feel the excitement again of being in a retail environment and being in business for yourself. He wasn't going to be a partner. He understood that. He didn't want that. He just wanted to be an advisor. He just wanted to be around. And he wanted to have some money to contribute to it. So all the money they could get a hold of, the more the better. So this was a really gracious thing. It was a very generous amount of money. And Mom and Dad were thrilled with it. Shortly after, within days, Jim, to this day, I don't know why, changed his mind. And he said, I want that money back. You shouldn't have taken it. Now, it was in the bank. It was done. Dad didn't work for the man anymore. But Dad said, well, if he wants it back, I'm giving it back. It was one of the few times where Mom kind of broke with Dad on something. She was furious. She had real issues with some of Jim's attitude shifts. He was, like I say, he was very unpredictable. He could be wildly generous. He could be terribly petty. He wasn't a perfect guy. But we all have our things. But when he asked for that money back, Mom was mortified, insulted, angry, and adamant that Dad not give that money back. Dad said, well, it was his money when he gave it to me. If he wants it back, I'm giving it back. I'm not going to be beholden. I'm not going to be chased. I'm not going to lose anything over it. It'll be all right. It'll work out. They even argued a bit about it. And my mom was more mad at Jim and Fairmont than she was at my dad, but she was frustrated. The dad was being so calm about it. I think she wanted to see him get mad and lash out at the 13 years of being there. Just let it come out. And I think that's what she was doing a little bit. Not out of control, but it was there, and I can understand why. I felt some of that myself when I heard about it. But Dad said, no, it's going to be okay. I'm going to give it back. I'm not going to, like he said, I'm not going to have anything hanging over me. And she said, just once, would you set aside the optimistic BS and just be angry? And my dad said to her in all seriousness and just almost kind of almost that wonder, he said, I don't know any other way to be. And I believe him. That's who he was. It wasn't a front. He wasn't putting it on. That's really how he interacted with the world. Again, unconditionally. He did give the money back. And oddly, they stayed associated after Dad retired. When Chuck and I went into business, guess who our supplier was? Fairmont. We still did business with them. We still worked things out. I think over time, Jim and Dad, whatever hard feelings there may have been or misunderstandings, they just worked through that too. We interacted with the family and the business and the company many times over the next 10 some plus years that Chuck and I were business together working with Fairmont Homes. Good times, bad times, prosperous times, difficult times. But all through it, Dad did not waver from his character and from his integrity. It was an amazing time. I'll never forget it. And I hope I live up to it myself. So that's the chapter, the kind of associate you always wanted. Let me know what you think. What could change? What should I add? What should I keep? What else would you like to hear? Are there issues or ideas or things that you are dealing with that you would like to know if Dad might have had a way of thinking about it that maybe I could address through one of these chapters? Let me know what you'd like to know about him. Is there something that I haven't told you yet about his story that you'd like to know about him? Put that in the comments too. I'd really appreciate it. That's it. Bye for now. See you next week.